Okay, so this one's really, really interesting. Basically, in the wake of the release of Starfield, we actually have details now on Starfield's first update and its upcoming features. And I don't know about you, Alex, but it seems to be a direct, and indeed John, it seems to be like a direct rebuttal to the criticisms that you guys raised in your various pieces of content. So if we look at some of the features they're talking about, brightness and contrast controls, HDR calibration, FOV slider, DLSS support. Um, there's a couple of extra ones here: 32 by 9 ultra wide support. I think you can ED hack that one already.
Yeah, you already can.
Eats button for food. Who wants to take this one first? Alex?
Yeah, for me, from the perspective of someone playing PC games for an eternity, it feels like the brightness and contrast controls one is just like super bizarre. Like, why wasn't that in the game in the first place? When's the last time you played a game from like a huge AAA developer that didn't have like brightness
Oh,
control?
Fallout 4.
Like, oh, well, that's great. So so like it
I
seems
think.
like Bethesda. Like, I love how freeform a lot of their everything is, and their embracing of modding. But like these are super basic things, some of them, and that they weren't there at launch is a big issue,
Yeah.
especially FOV slider on
Confirmed, Alex,
console
by
and
the
on
way.
PC.
There is no brightness slider in Fallout 4, indeed. So, and it was never added.
Yeah, so like really like brightness, like contrast, whatever. I guess that's a little bit artistic, but brightness, like my goodness, I can play like old mid '90s PC games that have brightness and gamma control in them.
I'd say it's more specifically
so-
HDR, though. That's the problem, right? Like, brightness and
Yeah,
contrast,
yeah.
one thing, but for HDR displays, with how variable they can be, without any sort of control for that, you're massively limiting your presentation.
Completely. And from the PC perspective, very happy to see DLSS support. I think they were a little bit named and shamed, even by AMD themselves, apparently, about this. So, and a big thing I'm thinking and seeing here, but I'm going to really problematize this. That's not even, I don't know if
It's
that's
not
a
a
word,
word,
but
but
like
let's
they're
roll
saying,
with it.
we are also working closely with NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel on driver support with each update to include new stability and performance improvements. While that is a very different way of putting that, the fact that the game wasn't optimized at launch, to say the least. Like before launch, before you launch a game, this isn't like when Rage launched. John has firsthand experience of this, Rage launching and the way it played on ATI AMD hardware back then. This is not that time. This is like the biggest game release of the year from a massive Microsoft. Microsoft makes the operating system that AMD, Intel, and NVIDIA chips run on. And from a developer that should be really PC centric, like, why weren't the drivers ready for NVIDIA and Intel at launch? I don't know. You ask yourself this question. Like, this doesn't happen really often for massive games. It shouldn't happen. You should be like having those things lined up before launch, and it's a really big part of actually launch of a PC game is making sure that NVIDIA, Intel, AMD have code a good amount of time beforehand, and also at periodically during the development, so they can give input about how you're utilizing or not utilizing their hardware in a good way. And so these things are very important regardless of who's sponsoring the game's technology. And it doesn't almost feel like it was done in a proper way for this release, so it wasn't optimized on Intel and NVIDIA GPUs at launch. And yeah, so I'm happy to see these things in, but it was really like, why weren't they there at launch? Why weren't they there?
Anything to add, John?
I mean, I agree with Alex. There was just little things like that missing from the launch that sorely missed. Obviously, everything could be modded in as is anyway, but you really shouldn't have to do that, right? This stuff should be standard in the game. The FOV, though, did they announce whether that's actually... Are all of these applying to the Xbox version as well?
Well, it can't be DLSS support, so I'm
No,
assuming it's gonna be...
obviously not that or ultra wide, but like FOV slider, HDR calibration.
Yeah, FOV, HDR, brightness, contrast control, and eat button are confirmed for Xbox.
Okay, good,
as far
good.
As I know.
That's a big deal then. But it's interesting that they actually are adding this stuff right away because, as I mentioned with Fallout 4, they never added some of this stuff, like ever. And
yeah,
even though they should not have launched it without this stuff, it does show a somewhat of a change in attitude now that they're actually willing to patch that stuff in, right? Which is actually a good thing. So that's worth at least highlighting.
Okay, yeah, and official mod support is coming next year, apparently, which should apply to the Xbox version as well.
Yeah.
Which is going to be pretty
That'd be
awesome, I
great.
think.
Oh yeah, they mentioned Skyrim and Fallout 4, so
Okay.
which they kind of
That's
did.